What's up guys, this is Zero Mikitsune and this is the 8th time I've recorded this intro. Today we are going to look at a handful of mods that are in my Skyrim Essential list. Now the reason why we're doing this is because of a comment in one of my previous videos. I did not forget about you. Originally this was supposed to be a full-on Fox guide, but there are just too many mods and the video would end up like 20, 30, 40 minutes. Nah, not about that. So we're just going to do a simple talk about them. One thing to note is the reason these mods are on my essentials list is not because they particularly add something new to the game, but it's because they tend to fix something I think Skyrim either had broken or simply had unexplored, an idea that didn't fully grow into something amazing, sometimes by adding something new. So we're going to go ahead and get started with SkySouls Unpaused game menus. This mod causes all your menus, your inventory menu, your magic menu, your hotkey menus, lockpicking, and reading books to not pause the game. The world keeps going while you do these actions. Now, it can be a bit buggy, the biggest issue being that there may be some crashing if your character is actually killed while you're inside one of these menus, but I actually leave those particular menus off. I let them still pause the game. The one I am particularly interested in is the lockpicking mechanic, because I feel that that is really how you make lockpicking interesting. Stop pausing the game and allow people to potentially catch you while you're lockpicking. And it's just something that should be core to a Thief playthrough, but again, it's something Skyrim left unexplored, and sadly, Fallout 4 followed suit. Moving on. Dragon Combat Overhaul expands the repertoire of abilities that all dragons can use, including dragons introduced by other mods. Now this too has left my load order a couple times due to a bug with dragons flying away and never coming back, including a handful of quest ones, but supposedly it's been resolved, and I did fight a few dragons after the patch and they didn't leave, so it's in here. This adds new features like dragons not being simply encouraged to land by attacking them, but actively dropping out of the sky and crashing into the ground if you hit them hard enough while they're flying. That by itself is amazing. It also allows you to manipulate the way dragon absorption works, so whether or not it can be done at a distance, like the dragon died but you were nowhere near it. It also gives dragons weight. When they fly off, if your character is too close to them and not blocking, you will actually be swept away by the wind. And same thing when they land, that earth-shattering quake won't just slightly irritate your screen, you'll actually collapse and you'll see all the NPCs around the dragon collapse. These features are the big ones for me, but there are just a plethora of other advantages to Dragon Combat Overhaul, and I feel like just for expanding on the dragons and the things they can do and how they affect the world, that is why I add this particular mod in there. Moving on again. The Book of UUNP Iron and Steel. This made me switch from CBBE, the particular body type I was using really early in my YouTube career, because you can see in my early videos, to using UUNP. This single mod by itself. Because it expands on the armors. Instead of having a single armor called Iron Armor, now there are variants of Iron Armor and Steel. And Forsworn, because it's been updated a couple times. But that is another thing I feel like Bethesda kinda leaves lackluster. They create a single armor, which is fair, it's okay, but you expect more from a Elder Scrolls title. I expect some depth, some ingenuity. Book of UUNP does that. So now you have like 10, 15, 20 variants of Iron Armor. They're all still Iron Armor, but they look different. Sadly, this is for females only because men get the shaft when it comes to Skyrim modding, but I can accept that. The next one is Enai Siaion's entire mod list. I'm talking Wildcat, Ordinator, Imperious, Wintermyst, Aurora, Apocalypse, blank of Skyrim. All of them. Now the reason why I grouped these all together is because they're just that good in my mind and I wanted to cheat and have them all on this list and still have it at 20, but in depth, Wildcat makes combat more, I guess you'd say, not fluid, but more risky. You can have injuries, you get staggered more, the player actually feels the staggers, and it's all customizable. That's one particular feature of all of Enai Siaion's mods, customization. You can really tailor these mods with the MCM menu to your particular feel. Ordinator perks of Skyrim, redoes all the perk trees, makes them feel better. If any of these had to go, all of them except Ordinator would go. Imperious races of Skyrim make all the races feel different with much better unique race abilities. And NPCs actively use these abilities in combat. Wintermyst expands the enchanting system without overall replacing it. Aurora standing stones, same thing as Imperious, make standing stones more interesting altogether. And Apocalypse Magic of Skyrim does what Wintermyst does, adds more to the magic system instead of overall replacing it. The next one is Amorous Adventures, because it adds sex and romance to a fantasy game. And I feel like Bethesda's kind of really dodged the bullet when it comes to these in the last two titles in particular. What with the whole, oh yeah, you can romance and marry anyone, no one really cares, because it's a small feature that doesn't have any depth into it. Now this one, I'm not saying it fixes it, but at least it expands upon it. You can now actually romance characters, which involves actual questing and dialogue, which uses the in-game NPC voices creatively reassembled to create new lines. So that in itself is a technical marvel that I wish more mods would take advantage of. I think if a person wants to play a romance playthrough, this is kind of essential. Okay, for this next one, I'm probably going to lose most y'all here, but SexLab Defeat. And the reason why is evil is hard to accomplish in a video game with an in-depth story, because being evil isn't something where you just complete quest objective A, complete quest objective B, complete quest objective C. It's not satisfying. Being evil requires you to be creative. And while I'm talking all this stuff, you're thinking, oh, just having sex? Really evil. Nah, I'm not talking about that. I completely push away all the sexual features of SexLab Defeat, and what you're left with is a bandit mod. You can now hold people up at weapon point, gunpoint, whatever the term would be there, and take their stuff. You can tie them up and throw them in a bag and then dump them in an enemy bandit camp to watch them get slaughtered. Or potentially capture a guard, wrap them up, take them with you on an advantage, get your ass whooped, and throw them out as like a Pokemon and say, go get them. The base features have a lot more flexibility. Hell, one more thing I forgot, you can actually capture bandits and send them to guards to get them slaughtered for a bounty. You can be a bounty hunter with this mod. There's just a lot more to it than what the name would simply imply. Okay, need to speed this up. This video is catching way too much length. The next mod is Ineed. The reason why I use Ineed is because I feel like a big open world title like this needs at least a tiny bit of realism, not too much as I don't like my games ultra realistic, but the simple desire to eat, sleep, and drink water is very useful. And this mod gives people a reason to go into taverns. I generally ignore taverns and towns until I got this mod. Before then it was simply be a hero, slaughter bandit camps, kill dragons, save princesses. Ignore the third one, that's not in Skyrim sadly. But with this mod I suddenly had to go into the taverns, and all of a sudden a whole new area of NPCs, a whole new list of quests were available to me. So that on its own gives Ineed a slot on my guarantee list. Next one, Dynamic Enchant. Now here we go into more of the technical aspects of Skyrim. Now in Skyrim, for enchanted items, the ones you find on bandits or enemies, those aren't dynamically made. What happens is Bethesda created those items inside the creation kit to have those enchants pre-equipped onto them. And thus, when someone adds a mod that adds enchantments, what they have to do is simply create more items with their own enchantments on it and add them to the list. Now, that's all good and dandy. Your vanilla weapons still have all these new fancy enchantments. But if you add mod-made weapons, like so many mods do, those weapons do not get enchantments. What this mod does is it makes the enchantment system for getting weapons dynamic. Instead, when an enemy is made, their weapon loadout is, looked at, and some weapons on it are given enchantments from a list that may contain different mods inside of your load order. A simple mod that serves to fix the problem that weapon mods can't gain enchantments from enchantment mods. Going with the theme of enchantments, you also have Utter Unique's upgrade. This mod replaces all the unique items with essentially better unique effects. The problem with Skyrim, and in some cases Fallout 4, is that most of the unique items in those games can be made by the player, can be recreated. They don't feel unique. This mod simply fixes that by giving each one a very unique ability, such as a sword that, freezes enemies and converts their soul into ice wraiths that help you fight. Think that might be a different mod, but the idea is still the same. All the unique items all of a sudden have very unique effects that you cannot recreate with the enchantment system. This next mod is more of a personal preference. I won't go, what the fuck, why don't you have this if you tell me you don't have it or you don't like it, but the mod is Immersive Wenches, and what it does, it adds wenches to the taverns of Skyrim, and it just feels like an aesthetic choice. More females is always a good thing. I don't have very much to say aside from that, although Deadly Wenches adds more female units to the bandit factions, and they're actually quite powerful and unique, with some unique abilities such as Berserk increasing the attack speed of the character very briefly, and then having them a little bit weaker for a little bit while afterwards, having specific tank-based NPCs who are designed to take as much damage to allow their teammates to kick your ass. So, actually maybe not Immersive Wenches, but Deadly Wenches, which requires Immersive Wenches, so I'm right anyway. Moving on, more combat, DynamicStealth. It improves the way the stealth system works and allows scenarios like the time of day, whether or not it's raining, and all that stuff to matter when it comes to your stealth, which is important in my mind. My god, this video is so long, but anyway, the next one is Recycle Bins of Skyrim. Now what this mod does is it adds a better breakdown system than the one in the smelters and the ones other mods try to shove down your throat. This one simply does it this way. If your weapon can be crafted, when you break it down, it turns back into its crafted parts. Very simple, very easy way to break down your weapons and get materials from them to craft other things. Doesn't raise up your smithing skills sadly, but I'll take a proper breakdown system than the one Skyrim provides us anyway. Okay, my dumbass had Dynamic Enchant on this list twice, so I had to quickly find another mod lest this be a list of 19 and that would irritate the fuck out of me. But Immersive Jewelry is another case of expanding upon what Skyrim has already added, and it simply adds new jewelry to literally everything. All sorts of jewelry. Different types of carrots, race-specific jewelry, faction-specific jewelry, adds all sorts of things, and adds a nifty little left-hand jewelry system, so you can wear multiple rings at once instead of being limited to the Skyrim system of one. It has a whole lot of features. I really recommend you look at the list inside the next page. It's fucking huge. But, moving on. Improved Artifacts Collection, Thane's Weapons. Now this is just a segment of another mod. I don't actually use the main mod, I just use this one. What it does is it makes the Thane weapons you get from holds, completing those lavish quest lines to become a Thane inside of these holds. It replaces the generic blah of whatever weapon you get with a actual unique weapon that has a very interesting ability on it. Has different interesting abilities, you get what I'm saying. So kind of like Utter Unique upgrade except for the Thane weapons. A good example is that instead of getting the stupid axe of Whiterun from Whiterun after slaying a goddamn dragon, you get Dovadon, a giant greatsword that deals 50% increased damage to dragons. That's awesome and a good mod to have. Next one, face-to-face conversation. Now this is a problem I'm seeing in Fallout 4. Bethesda wants to really reinvent the way they do these dialogue systems when their old titles just had it perfect. Go into first person, look at the dude in the face and talk to him. You get a good look at the NPC, you get to see his facial expressions, and this is what this mod does. It even has a nifty version where in third person, instead of jumping to first person, it simply zooms in so you just know you're focusing on that NPC. Really good mod to have. Okay, we're nearing towards the end and I refuse to have this video go past 20 minutes. Next one is Loot and Degradation. Adds weapon durability to Skyrim through use of its crafting system. So instead of smithing and sharpening your weapons till they're legendary, now that actually matters because every time you damage a weapon, it'll steadily decay down back to its original base form, losing damage and value as it goes. The only downside is that if you activate the weapon breaking, you'll have your weapon turned to a bunch of scraps, including rare, unique, and sometimes quest items. If they could replace that with simply having your weapon say broken and being unable to equip or having 0 damage, way better. Next, Warzone Civil Unrest 2015. The Civil War sucks, everyone knows this. This mod simply makes the Civil War come a little bit more to life. It adds massive amounts of NPCs, customizable in MCM, mind you, to the world that will clash at several different locations, having outposts randomly spawn and despawn on your map, so you'll sometimes come across different factions that you're either allied with or against. It's just a whole lot of fun and adds more to the Civil War in general. The next one is Quick Look, a rip from Fallout 4, that's the simplest way to say it. The looting system in Fallout 4 where you look inside of an item in real time is sheer brilliance on the developer's part. Looting stops being a tiresome task that must be repeated over and over again and gets you quickly back into the action. Easy to say, out of all the mods on this list, this is probably one of the few that is 100% I think every Skyrim player needs to have. Next one is Race Menu, but not normal race menu as that'd go into the obvious ones, but race menu body gen, which I don't see nearly as many people using as I think they should. This allows NPCs to be dynamically modified, their bodies at least, to a variety of different shapes. This is kind of the next level of character design. This should be the standard. We all talk about how we want our games to be realistic, and yet every time the NPCs all have the same body models. The only downside I can say to this mod is that there's no males version. Please give me a males version. We guys need something in this. I actually rock a male character in Skyrim. Come on, throw a dog a bone here. But moving on from that is the final mod, and I hand placed this one at the bottom, so there was a little bit of sorting in this list. But Legacy of the Dragonborn. This is the completionist mod. If you want to know what items are in at least vanilla Skyrim, here they are. You find an entire museum galleria of them, and you will know exactly how many items there were to get in Skyrim, and you won't know where to find them because you'll have to play the goddamn game, but you now have a place to store them. Now that little hoarder inside of you that, loves these type of games has somewhere to put his collection. And not just unique items, you also have personal rooms that you can fill up with the items you get. It also expands and adds multiple DLC-sized quests to find even more equipment and items, and also adds in equipment from previous Elder Scrolls games to the list of things you can find. It just does so much. I really think every player should have the Legacy of Dragonborn. And those are some of my essential mods for Skyrim. Let me know in the comment section what kind of mods I introduced you to that you didn't already know about. That would be pretty fun to see. And I know I was kind of copping out by having this as a ZTI, something easy to create, rather than a Fox guide which requires editing and all sorts of fun stuff. It's not really fun. Actually, it kind of is. But I didn't know how to make this video in a way that wasn't a 40, 45, 60 minute long video, and I kind of want to keep my channel relatively on the short side. I say as this video encroaches 19 minutes. Oh lordy. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. And I hope this video satisfies you, my dear YouTube commenter.